All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something that literally makes or breaks our relationship with data, and that is dashboard design. Think about it like this. Building an effective dashboard is exactly like constructing a house. You wouldn't just start nailing a bunch of boards together without a blueprint, right? I mean, that'd be a disaster. So why do we do that with our data? In this Explainer, we're going to look at the true architectural blueprints for data visualization, pulling some incredible insights from UX research, real-world design catalogs, and strict public health guidelines.
Here's our blueprint for today's session. We've got the dashboard design dilemma, desktop patterns that work, mobile-first survival rules, the unseen foundation, and finally, accessibility and quality assurance. Let's jump in.
Section 1, the dashboard design dilemma, form versus function. So here's the harsh reality of data visualization. You can have the absolute most pristine, accurate, beautifully structured data set in the world. But if you force that data set into a terrible layout, you've just created a tool that is technically correct, but practically useless. People will look at it, get completely overwhelmed, and just go right back to their spreadsheets.
It all boils down to this one brutal truth. Users don't read dashboards, they scan them. This completely reframes how we have to think about our audience and their time to insight. Look, they aren't settling in with a cup of coffee to read a novel. They have a specific question, and they want the answer right this second.
So, how exactly are they scanning? Well, Nielsen-Norman Group's eye tracking studies pinpoint something called the F pattern. Users naturally scan across the top of a screen, then down the left side, paying less and less attention as they move down and to the right. Basically, if you bury your most important metric in the bottom right corner, the F pattern guarantees most of your users are never, ever going to see it.
And that brings us to the magic number, 3. 3 seconds is the absolute maximum time it should take for your layout to answer the user's primary question. If they're hunting around for the insight for longer than 3 seconds, the layout has failed. It's that simple.
Moving on to Section 2, desktop patterns that work, structural archetypes. Now, when we're dealing with a wide, expansive desktop screen, we aren't just guessing where to put things. We can actually deploy specific, highly effective structural archetypes that have been formalized by academic research. Stuff like the IEEE Dashboard Design Patterns Catalog.
But here's the million-dollar question. How do you actually choose the right layout? I mean, all that blank canvas space can be kind of paralyzing, right? Well, it actually comes down to a very strategic, logical framework.
You really don't have to guess. Your specific KPI count and your audience's main intent should automatically dictate your layout choice. For example, say you have 3 to 6 KPIs and the goal is making decisions. Boom, you go with the KPI row and a chart grid. If you're monitoring 10 plus KPIs in real time, you need a monitoring wall. It's all about matching the pattern to the job.
Let's break down the most popular one, the KPI row plus chart grid. You drop 3 to 6 horizontal metric cards right at the top and follow that up with a couple of charts below. This is the absolute gold standard for executive summaries. Why? Because it answers the "Are we on track?" question instantly, right at the top left where that F pattern starts.
But what if you're presenting to the board, or you really need to tell a story with your data? That's where the inverted pyramid comes in. You start with one massive hero KPI at the top. Below that, a trend chart, then maybe a category breakdown, and finally a detailed table at the very bottom. It beautifully mirrors human storytelling, right? It guides the viewer from the massive "what happened" headline straight down into the microscopic "show me the details" data. And then we have the quadrant layout. The canvas is divided into 4 equal areas. Think financial, customer, operations, and people. What's absolutely brilliant about this is that it prevents organizational tunnel vision. Because all 4 boxes are exactly the same size, no single dimension dominates the visual hierarchy. It is just a perfectly balanced scorecard. Which brings us to Section 3, Mobile-First Survival Rules, Designing for Constraint. So what happens when we leave the desk? We all know dashboards aren't just for massive office monitors anymore. But listen closely. Simply taking a desktop dashboard and shrinking it down to fit a mobile phone is a recipe for a total UX disaster.
Think about the total shift in environment here. On desktop, you have these wide, expansive canvases and precise mouse cursors for hovering. But on mobile, you're trapped in a tiny box of about 375 by 812 pixels. Users aren't using precise cursors, they're using imprecise, fat fingers. Mobile-first design absolutely forces us to prioritize large touch targets and radical simplicity so people can get fast contextual answers.
Because you're working with that tiny screen, you just can't jam a massive full chart with complex axes and legends in there. It takes up way too much space. Instead, we use sparklines. These are tiny, inline trend visualizations. Now, they won't give you exact, perfectly readable data points, but they answer the crucial question, is this going up or down? Instantly, and they do it without wasting any valuable real estate.
So, pulling this all together gives us a set of universal mobile principles. First, you need one hero metric that's 2 to 3 times larger than everything else. Use scannable, card-based layouts. Build in progressive depth, meaning give them a summary first and the detail only if they physically tap. Maintain consistent spacing, and crucially, keep color to an absolute minimum. You only use color for deltas or alerts, like green for up, red for down. Aggressive typographic hierarchy and minimal color drastically reduce cognitive load when your screen is that small.
Shifting gears to Section 4, the unseen foundation, governance and planning. Look, jumping straight into your BI tool without a wireframe or a plan is, again, exactly like building a house without a blueprint. It might stand up for a day or two, but eventually it's going to collapse.
Take a look at this rigorous planning sequence straight from the Oregon Health Authority's Public Health Data Guidelines. Step 1. You define the development roles. Next, determine the specific purpose of the build. Then, select your data sources. And finally, discuss data governance rules. You literally have to have these conversations before you draw a single chart.
And a huge piece of that governance puzzle? Access. You absolutely have to define strict user access levels. We're talking everything from internal full access for restricted line-level data, all the way down to public full for published aggregates. You have to know who is allowed to see what before you ever visualize a single metric, especially if you're dealing with sensitive information.
And while you're in that planning phase, you've got to ask the hard, behind-the-scenes structural questions. Like, how exactly will missing data be handled? Do you need a data scaffold to display zeros? If you ignore these questions up front, your gorgeous dashboard might completely mislead the viewer the second a data point drops to 0 or goes missing.
Finally, we hit Section 5, Accessibility and Quality Assurance, the final inspection. Think of this as the final walkthrough of our newly built house. This is not a nice-to-have. Rigorous QA and accessibility are completely non-negotiable for a truly successful data product. The absolute gold standard here, which is actually mandated for state and local governments, is the WCAG 2.2 AA standard. It demands inclusive text, high contrasting colors, and functional navigation for everyone. Now, why is this such a big deal for dashboards? Because on small mobile screens, poor contrast, tiny text, and UI clutter become incredibly obvious and super frustrating. Adhering to this standard actually becomes your best friend for a cleaner, universally better design.
So before you even think about hitting publish, run through a highly practical QA checklist like this one. Provide descriptive URLs and alt text. Ensure all your text is horizontal. Seriously, no tilted axes where people have to crank their necks. Remove any unnecessary chart borders to boost that data to ink ratio. Implement plain language reviews, and always provide simple pointer alternatives for anything that requires dragging. These quick checks ensure your dashboard is effortlessly readable for literally anyone using it.
And that wraps up our blueprint, but I want to leave you with this really fascinating thought from a recent academic review. Despite everything we currently know, personal data visualization on mobile devices is still considered a wide-open research frontier. We are honestly still figuring out the full capabilities of smartphones when it comes to handling complex tasks and interactions. So, taking a hard look at your own projects, is your dashboard truly ready for the future? I challenge you to radically rethink your mindset on your next build. Start with the blueprint and build something users actually want to scan. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.